Hey everybody, how you doing? Casey Smith here with Matisse Realty. I wanted to make a quick video to talk to you a little bit today about what is the first step in buying a home or when you're considering buying a home. A lot of times we often get the idea we want to own a house and we go online and start Googling homes for sale in, let's say, Rancho Cucamonga, for example. And then we often come across online search sites, the big search sites like Zillow, Trulia, maybe Redfin, and we'll start clicking, we'll start looking at homes for sale. We see some really beautiful pictures and some really fancy descriptions about the house and looks really appealing, and we start to get kind of drawn in. And you'll take note, you'll look, especially like on websites like Zillow, you'll look and see estimated monthly payments, and you'll see a breakdown of what your payment might look like on a house, and then this estimate of what's the house worth, right? So the thing to be careful for when we see these online estimated payments, though, is oftentimes they're using some of the lowest interest rates out there on the market and not really reasonable interest rate that you might expect. So that monthly payment can actually look a lot lower than it might really be. The other thing is a lot of these websites like Zillow, etc., rely on getting their information from software and programs that real estate agents use, especially called the MLS. And a lot of times the agents can decide if they want to allow the homes for sale to hit those major sites, right? So you're not necessarily seeing all of the homes that are currently for sale. The other issue is with these big sites is they don't necessarily get updated. So when a house it goes into escrow, is taken off the market, the Zillow might not get that update. So I get a lot of calls about properties. Potential buyer gets really excited, and then they talk to me about the address. I look it up, and I have to let them know. Unfortunately, the house sold several months ago, or it's not on the market. So that's the thing, and you hate letting people down. So just something to be aware of. But really, so what is the first step? So really what it comes down to is, of course, you need to understand your needs. What is your goal with purchasing real estate? Is it the right time? Is It's a major, one of the biggest financial investments you'll ever make in your life. So you'll have to decide, is it time to buy? Do I know exactly where I want to live? How long do I want to be there? What type of home am I looking for? Is this something I'm going to be in 2, 3 years? Potentially later use it as an investment property and rent it out? Or is it going to be a home I'm going to buy and planning to live for 10 plus years or forever? And so maybe it's something larger. Do you have a family now? People going to live with you? Or is it something you're looking small that you'll work into, right? So those are all things you have to look at. Then, of course, you need to look at what's your monthly budget? How much of a payment can you afford to spend? And or would you like to spend, and how does that relate to the current pricing of what you're looking for in real estate, and then does that align with your budget? You have to take into account your annual income, how much you earn every month, every year. Does it change? Does it go up and down? Do you have seasonal jobs, overtime? And then what's your expenses? What's your bills? Do you have we all have credit cards, student loans, car payments, things like that. And so obviously that sounds kind of intimidating. It's like, how do I know? Is it time to buy and whatnot? So only you're going to really know, is it the right situation, right time for you? But there's people and partners like myself that can definitely are here to help you and be a resource for you to make that decision if it's the right time to buy, and if so, where and what type of home are you going to look at? Is it a house? Is it a condo? Is it a townhome? Is it possibly a manufactured home? There's all kinds of things to take into account depending on the situation, right? So then I work with great lender partners, or loan officers we call them, and that's going to be the major first step. If I was to tell you what's the first step in buying a home, it's really going to come down to you meeting with a loan officer and going over a lot of the things I just described. What's your employment look like? How long have you been at your employer? What's your annual salary or income that you're making? And do you have different investments and different income things that you have coming in? And then looking at what kind of debt you have, what's your monthly payments as far as credit cards, loans, car payments, and things like that, right? So another big thing too is the loan officer would work with you is needing to look at your credit and run a credit report, similar to buying a car, right? Going to collect a lot of information from you, get permission to run your credit and needs to see what your credit score is and also look at what your obligations are as far as debt goes, right? So then what happens is there's an analysis done, a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, and come up with your monthly debt to income ratio. So how much monthly debt do you have compared to what your income is? And then there's a formula or a ratio that's developed, and that will determine if you're allowed to be approved for a home loan if you're going to utilize a loan to purchase a house, which most of us do. Which, if you're approved to do so, and then secondly, how much you're going to be approved for as far as your purchase price goes. So, if that ratio is done and comes up with a number, and let's say you're looking at a house of $350,000, we're going to need to figure out what's that payment going to be every month on a $350,000 home, and then based on your debt to income ratio, can you qualify for that amount? So there's a lot more that goes into it, but that's kind of the basic process that'll happen. And of course, there's certain minimum credit scores that you'll need to have depending on the type of loan you use. Certain employment history. Sometimes you need to be at your employer 2 years. Other times you may have been in school and let's say went to several years of a nursing school, for example, graduated, got a really good position. Now you may qualify based on your time in school and your current job and income. So there's a lot of stuff to be looked at and analyzed, but that's where the loan officer is going to work with you, collect all the information, educate you, work with you on a comfortable monthly payment and budget, and then work to see if they can get you qualified. Now, with that, when you are, let's say you're qualified to buy a home, congratulations to you. When we go out and look for a home and find a home, you're, depending on the type of loan, oftentimes going to need to have a down payment and pay for what's called closing costs. So closing costs are fees that go towards paying for escrow, different notary when you go to sign loan paperwork. There's a lot of fees that happen during the real estate process, and that's where your closing cost comes from. Now, there's oftentimes we're able to structure programs that we can get your closing costs covered, whether it comes from a credit that the lender gives you when they're giving you a loan. Sometimes the sellers are willing to credit you some of their money from the sale of the property to help you with the closing costs, and then other times it could come from money you've saved up and will pay towards your closing costs. There's also, like I mentioned, down payment. So let's say you're doing an FHA loan. FHA loans require that you put 3.5% down of the purchase price. So let's say that home price is $350,000. You would do $350,000 times 3.5% and come up with your down payment amount. Now, there are types of loans, VA loan, for example, where you may have to put little to zero money down. There's also certain times people, maybe they're selling a house and buying a new house and want to put some more money down to lower the amount they're going to borrow. And they may be doing what's called a conventional loan and putting about 20% down of the purchase price. So there's advantages to every type of type of loan and how much you put down, and it's all going to again depend on your situation and what kind of payment you're comfortable with and approved for. So now the great thing is, especially for first time buyers, there's a lot of down payment assistance programs out there. So we have some different resources that can actually contribute and give you money to help with that down payment and closing costs you're going to need. Now, you do oftentimes have to come out with a little bit of money from your savings. Maybe you have some money put away in a 401k that you can access. There's other times people get gift money. Maybe you have a nice grandma or grandpa out there that's willing to gift you some funds. Can't be a loan, but let's say they're willing to give you, let's say, $3,000 to help you go out and buy that brand new house. You say thank you and do some paperwork and get you covered that way. So there's a lot of different ways, and we try to combine these programs to see what's best for you as the client and the home buyer and see if we can make it work. Now, let's say there's things on your credit report. We all have stuff happen that maybe your score is not where it needs to be to get qualified, or maybe you're not approved for the amount of money that you wanted to go for. So at that point, we'll definitely continue to work with you, come up with a plan. Maybe you need to increase your credit score a bit, so we'll give you things that you can work on to do that. Maybe it's just taking some time to save some extra money, pay off a little bit of debt and things like that. and we'll get you a plan. And maybe we determine, you know what, now's not the time, but let's try again in a year. And maybe you go rent for a little bit, or hey, maybe you know what, you're approved. Let's get you going now. And sometimes maybe you're approved for more than you realize. So we'll have to consider what's best for you at that time. So that kind of sums up the first step is meeting with that loan officer, and we call it the pre-approval process. You might hear pre-qualification or pre-approval, very similar. And what we want to do is get you ultimately a pre-approval letter where the loan officer's collected information such as your employment history. You're going to look at your W-2s or 1099s for the last few years. You're going to look at your past tax returns for the past few years. Going to look at a few months of bank statements. Going to need to get your social security information, driver's license, permission from you to run that credit report, and some other basic information. But that kind of sums up what's going to be collected, and then that analysis is going to be done to determine, can you get pre-approved? If so, for how much? And then ultimately get you what's called a pre-approval letter saying that your information has been reviewed based on the current information that the loan officer's collected. They feel that you would be later approved for a home loan for this amount. That letter is critical to us actually going out and once you select a home, being prepared to put an offer down on that property. If we're going to go out and find a home and submit an offer, if we don't have that pre-approval letter, the sellers and the agents reviewing the offer are not going to take your offer serious, because they don't want to accept your offer, get into escrow, and later find you're not qualified to purchase that house. So that letter arms you with the ability, hey, I'm a willing and able buyer, ready to go. They're going to know that your situation's been reviewed, have that approval, and be much more willing to accept your offer to purchase the home. So that really sums up the first steps in getting that pre-approval. If you have any questions for me, whether it's just starting out buying a home, want to know about the real estate market, where we're at, where it's going, questions not related to real estate, I would love to connect with you. If you would like to start sitting down and discussing a plan, whether it's to purchase now or later, let's say you're ready to start that pre-approval process. Like I told you, have some great lender partners that I can get you connected with. If you need some down payment assistance information, we can definitely share that with you as well. Let's say you're a current homeowner considering moving up to a larger home. Maybe your family's growing. Congrats if it is. Or possibly you're looking to downsize. Maybe you've got kids or relatives that have moved on and the house is too big and you're looking to do a smaller home. Or maybe you're looking to do an investment property, considering moving to a new home or renting your current house out, or staying in your home, purchasing a second property, whether it's a vacation home, rental property, could definitely connect with you there as well. So feel free to comment, question, let me know how I can help, and stay tuned for future videos about the real estate market and other topics that may come our way. Thank you so much for your support and partnership, and really appreciate every one of you out there. Take care.